If you feel trapped inside of an abusive marriage right now, I want to let you know that there is a way out, I promise. I remember exactly what it feels like to feel completely trapped and like there is no way out. I'm making this video for you to tell you that there is a way out because I was able to navigate an international divorce, get sole custody of my daughter, and I set up a brand new life for us. I started my own business during her naps so I could continue to be a stay-at-home mom. Now, I don't know what your situation is. Every country is different. I'm gonna share with you my experience. This was an international divorce from Costa Rica to the United States. And this is what I did, and I hope that this can help you see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you can get out, even if it feels completely impossible right now. I'm telling you, I am telling you, you can leave. You can. There is always a way out, even if you can't see it right now. There is. Okay, I'm just gonna go through these one by one. This is harder to talk about than I thought it was gonna be. The first thing I did was I made the decision to leave. In hindsight, making the decision was the hardest part. What went into making my decision with 100% conviction was once I realized that it was abuse, there was no going back. I couldn't unknow it. I just thought to myself, the abuse is not my fault, but now that I know that it's abuse, if I choose to stay in this, now that's on me. And there is no way in hell I was gonna be choosing a lifetime of abuse. I knew that I deserved better and that my daughter deserved better. And the other defining moment was when my ex-husband had one of his explosions. He was screaming at me and throwing things and punching the wall and doing just exploding. And I remember my daughter in her diaper toddling around and looking at me. And I felt like what she was thinking was Mommy, why are you so scared? It was the first time I had seen a look of concern on her face. And I ran to the bathroom and I was bawling my eyes out. And what I saw staring back at me in the mirror was an empty shell of the person I used to be. I just knew that I could not raise my daughter in a house like that. And I knew that if I stayed in this, she would never know the real me. I was she's going to be deprived of knowing who her mom is. She's going to think her mom is this frail, broken down, just empty shell of a person. And that I would be modeling for her that it's okay for daddy to treat mommy like this, and that she would end up probably someday in a marriage just like that. And I was there's no way. There is no way. I need to get out of this. And I was so sure about my decision. And so if you're feeling trapped right now, that is the first step. And it really is the hardest, is making that decision with 100% conviction, because you will get trapped in the cycle of abuse. You will have moments where you feel I'm crazy to want to leave. And your mind can go off into thinking of all the things that could go wrong, maybe, not having enough money to pay for a lawyer, or you're worried about custody and all of that stuff. And I just want to tell you right now, if you can just do the first thing, just decide, commit to it 100%, everything else will unfold much easier and you will be able to do it. The second thing I did after I decided that I'm leaving, I started visualizing the best outcome instead of catastrophizing and being what if and what if. I was okay, stop it. Just focus on what you want. So I was laser focused on, we're leaving and I'm getting sole custody. I had no idea how. It really felt impossible at the time, but I just kept my eye on where I was going. I was visualizing going through the steps and that it's all gonna work out. The next thing I did was I started doing research and gathering facts like crazy. I started Googling Costa Rican divorce law, United States divorce law, because at the time I didn't know if I should be hiring a Costa Rican lawyer or a US lawyer. And I had to like sneak around doing this too, because my husband and I worked together, we lived together, like we were together all the time and had a 1-year-old daughter. So like life was busy. I was with him the majority of the time. And so really I was like doing this when he was sleeping. I would stay up and then I would like lay on the hammock outside researching Costa Rican law, divorce laws, custody laws, like everything. So one of the main things I learned that really helped me like build my confidence, that I started to see some light at the end of the tunnel, was that in a divorce situation, especially where there's abuse, Costa Rican law will favor the mother. So I was like, okay, great. I've got one thing going for me. Okay. But I still had all of the doubts of like, this is an international divorce. Like I still had a lot of fear, but again, I kept focusing on, I'm going to make this happen. Like nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to make this happen, because it has to happen. There was just no way I was going to live a life like that and have that for my daughter. So I was doing a lot of research, and I was feeling like I was getting stuck, because like I said, I had to do all of that research. Like I had to hide it, and it was really difficult. Finding moments of time where I wasn't around my husband was, or I wasn't like in mom mode, like changing diapers and doing the whole mom thing. And so I asked for help, and this was a critical step. I was so afraid to tell anybody what was going on. That was so hard. Like I'll never forget the first friend I reached out to, and to actually say the words like, I'm in an abusive marriage. I just realized that, and I need help. Like, it was so hard. Like, it's even hard for me to repeat what I had to say. But I had to do it. Like, I had to ask for help. There is no way that I would have been able to do this on my own. So I started building a team of support around me. I had a couple of friends in the US. I felt like we were setting up like a secret operation, and they were like my team on the ground back in the US who was like helping me. They were helping me do research. They were contacting US lawyers and finding out more facts for me, and then like reporting to me. We had a secret email address that we were communicating with, that my husband did not know about that email address. One of my friends said that I could stay at her house for as long as I needed. Things were starting to come together. I had another friend say she would help me with money, like to pay for a lawyer. Another thing I did as part of this undercover operation was I would schedule these therapy appointments. What I really was doing was I went to the therapy appointment, and she was also part of this operation. Her office became a safe place where I could go, and she would just help me. Like she even came with me to meet with a local Costa Rican lawyer. She set it up. She set up a free consultation. We went to his office together, and she helped me like ask questions and figure out what my next best step would be. At this point, I had like a team of people who were helping me plan this escape. They all said the thing I needed to focus on doing next, like before I made a decision on hiring a lawyer or any of that, I needed to book a flight for me and my daughter from Costa Rica back to the US. Like everybody was like, just get out, like get away from him and get out of here as soon as you can. They told me like, just tell him that you're taking your daughter to go visit your family. You're going on a trip, but you're never coming back. And I was like, okay. So, and something I should add here is throughout this entire process, I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I was focused on visualizing the best scenario, the best outcome of just, I'm going to live in the US and I'm going to have sole custody. It's going to work out. And I kept asking myself, what is my next right step? Because I could only take one step at a time. Each step felt like climbing Mount Everest. This is literally the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. If you are in this position right now and you're watching this video because you need to get out, it is going to be hard. I am not going to sugarcoat it. Like this is the hardest thing you will probably ever do, but it is so worth it. It is so worth it. because now that I'm on the other side and I can see clearly like what it feels like to not be living in an abusive marriage every single day, what it feels like to not have to walk on eggshells around my own house or be terrified of my husband. It's a whole new world of freedom. I have a much better life set up for myself and my daughter. Living in abuse is just no way to live. So get out. Get out if you're being abused. There is no excuse for abuse, period. The other resource I used was the hotline.org. I called that hotline so many times. They helped me validate the abuse, because I would have moments where I was like, I would minimize it. I would be like, well, maybe it's not that bad. And when I was having those moments where I would get stuck in the cycle of abuse and starting to second guess my decision to leave, even though I had made the decision with 100% conviction, like I said, those moments like kept popping up of, well, he was really nice to me today. Maybe this is the worst decision I'm making. Like maybe I should stay. Maybe, maybe it's going to get better. I would call them and say, okay, he did this, and they would be like, yes, that is extreme abuse. Like it is abuse. And they kept telling me like, you are not crazy. You are being abused. You do not deserve this. Nobody does. And you and your daughter deserve to have a lifetime, free from abuse. And they weren't able to help me from a legal standpoint, but they did point me in the direction of resources, of phone numbers to call and emails and different resources. And I was giving those to my friends to say, okay, contact this lawyer, call this person, whatever. They were super, super, super helpful in making my escape plan. They also gave me the warning that statistically speaking, when somebody tries to leave, that is when the abuse can really escalate, and never underestimate your abuser. That's really true, because on the drive to the capital where the airport is, he was really mad that we were going. He started driving super recklessly, like speeding insanely fast. And if you've ever been to Costa Rica before, you'll know that like the roads are through mountains. I mean, they're windy, narrow roads. The traffic is crazy. There's like cliffs that you can fall off of. I mean, it's just, the driving there can be like really scary. And he was driving extremely recklessly, which is one of the behaviors that he did a lot. And I remember thinking that day, like, oh my God, this like, cause our flight was leaving the next day. And I'm like, I'm one day away from getting us out of here. And I was terrified that he was gonna drive off a cliff and kill us all. It was one of the scariest situations I've ever been in my life. Like I really thought he was gonna kill us all that day. And I was just like breathing, like one breath at a time, and like, I'm gonna make it. We're gonna make it. We're gonna get on that flight tomorrow. We're gonna be out of here. It's gonna be okay. Just something to be aware of. Abuse can escalate when you're trying to leave. So make sure that you have a team of people who are helping you and making sure that you have a safe plan out. Once I had those flights for my daughter and I booked, that was like a huge victory and a sense of relief, because I had a day that I knew we would be getting on a plane and finally getting back to the US. And I remember feeling like what a waste of money it was to book a round trip ticket, because I knew we wouldn't be taking that return flight back, but I had to book that because I had to make him think that this was just a family visit and that we would be coming back, because otherwise he wouldn't let me go. Like everybody, the team of people helping me, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, the handful of lawyers I had talked to, the therapist that I was seeing, they all said, do not tell him you're leaving. Do not tell him that you want a divorce. Just try to keep everything as normal as possible. Like even down to how I was going to pack my suitcase. And so I had to like just emotionally detach myself and just be willing to leave a lot of things behind, because I couldn't risk that he would realize that I was packing to never come back. I had to make it look like I was just going on a trip. So that was like a whole challenge and emotional roller coaster in and of itself, but very minor compared to everything else in the grand scheme of things. And from the time I had booked the flight to the time that we were actually leaving, I had like a month and a half about to prepare to leave. I needed to get like all of my paperwork and evidence in order. This was key. I scanned all of the important papers because I wasn't going to take them with me, because again, that would make him think like, why are you taking her birth certificate with you on a family trip? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I had to leave all of that paperwork behind, but I scanned copies of it and I had a Google folder of everything. So then I also gathered evidence. I think I spent like 4 hours on my phone going through text messages between us, because he would have very like abusive, verbal abuse in his text messages to me. So I screenshotted all of those text messages. I screenshotted emails. Screenshotted, is that a word? I took screenshots. I went through photos and I took photos of like, when he had punched a hole in the door or in the wall, like anything, no matter how little or small it seemed, I grabbed it and I put it all in a Google folder called the evidence folder. And I also opened up a Google Doc. Those last couple months I was there, every single day, I wrote the date and I just journaled exactly what happened. Like every abusive explosion, I called them explosions because he would explode. And I'm talking about like what the abuse looked like is like a whole different story. The point of this video is like telling you how I got out of there. I would write down exactly what happened, because at this point, like the abuse was a daily thing. It was, and multiple times a day, like picking up my daughter and running out of the house to get away from him was becoming a daily occurrence. And then he would gaslight me and tell me that he never did those things. So I started collecting the evidence because lawyers had been advising me to do that, and because I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy and that those things actually did happen. So like immediately after he would have an explosion, I would sneak off and open up my secret Google account that he didn't know about, and I would document like, he said this, he threw this, or he punched this, or he did this, and this is how I feel. And I just wrote everything. Like I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was like, I'm just going to document exactly what happened. The whole evidence folder that I had put together, the photos, the journal, all of that, it was like the key thing that got me sole custody. So if you have not already started documenting the abuse, start now. Just document it in any way that you can, because it can literally be the difference between getting custody and not. So I put together a really kick-ass evidence file to prepare myself. At this point, I still did not have a lawyer. I was just focused on getting to the US, getting to safety, where I could have the time and space and be physically away from him so that I could focus on getting a lawyer. And next thing was, my daughter and I flew back to the US. It was June 2nd, 2021. I'll never forget that date. That is like my freedom-versary that I celebrate every year. Okay, so finally we made it to the US. It was like, thank God, like we're physically safe now. That was such a huge accomplishment. And I just remember feeling so relieved, like, I don't have to go back there. I do not have to go back to that house. I don't have to be around him anymore. Like I'm one step closer now to getting what I'm focused on. I still was trying to figure out if I should be filing for divorce through Costa Rica or if I should be filing for divorce in the United States. I came to the conclusion that it made the most sense to file through Costa Rica. Gosh, I must have interviewed like over 10 lawyers. I finally found the right one. It was the day before my birthday, and I remember feeling like it was the biggest birthday present I could have ever gotten, because he was so confident, like, I understand your situation. I know what you want. This is how we're going to get it. I knew that he knew how to navigate this whole thing and help me achieve my goal, which was being able to stay in the US with her and have sole custody. Finally, now I was like, okay, it's all coming together. I got this. I'm one step closer. Now I have the right lawyer. After that, it was really like my lawyer who led the rest of the process. The first thing that my lawyer did was file a domestic violence case against my husband. And I was really scared. And like, I was still in that mode where I was like trying to like protect my husband for whatever reason, like because I had just been used to sweeping everything under the rug and like minimizing his behavior and hiding it from people. Like nobody knew what was happening behind closed doors. I protected him very well. And most of that was really from the shame of feeling like if people knew how he treated me behind closed doors, I felt like they would think I was stupid for being with him. And so I was very used to hiding it. Long story short, my lawyer was like, this is a domestic violence case. You need to file this because you need to protect yourself and your daughter. Like, this is serious. He's like, this is step one before we file for divorce. In addition to filing that and having on record of all the abuse that happened, me and my daughter were also given legal protection. So there was a restraining order. He could not come within 500 meters of us for an entire year. Once I got the news that I had that protection, it was like the first time that I had felt safe in a long time. Like, it was such relief. I wasn't even divorced yet, but I just remember like hugging my daughter and holding her, and like, she didn't know what was going on other than that I was giving her a hug. But I felt like I did it. Like, we're safe. We don't have to be around him for a minimum of a year at least. Like, now I have this like we're protected, you know? And it was like the most victorious feeling of like, we're safe. We're safe. I hadn't felt safe in such a long time that I couldn't even remember. After the domestic violence case was filed, my husband could have gone to the court system and tried to defend himself. He didn't even try to. After that was filed, then my lawyer advised me to have a conversation with him and say, these are the things I want. Let's come to an agreement. So that we didn't have to go and have like this whole entire court battle. That's what I did. I called him. I said, obviously, like, I'm not coming back. Obviously, we're getting a divorce. And I'm going to write up for you everything. Because you had to think about, you know, the finances, our assets, custody, visitation rights, all of this stuff. And so I wrote up an email for him and I said, I want this, this, and this. And he agreed. That part of the divorce was actually really smooth. Now here we are about 3.5 years later. I did it. Woo! So if you are in this position, like if you're still here watching this video, it's because you need help, okay? And I want to remind you again, you are worthy of love and respect. You do not need to suffer a lifetime of abuse. You can get out of there, even if it feels impossible right now. Like, you can and you deserve it. Just focus on taking the next right step. Get a team of support around you. Make a safe escape plan. Document everything and find the best lawyer that you can who is going to fight for exactly what you want. And just keep reminding yourself that you can do this. You can. There is a way out. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm cheering you on. And there are people who will help you. Reach out to your family and friends. Reach out to hotline.org. And do what it takes to make it happen, because you deserve a life free from abuse and you are worthy of love and respect.